Chapter 10 Yudhishthira's Tirtha Yatra in Vanaparva. The Pandavas were spending their time with the great difficulty. Arjuna was the favorite of all of them. They missed his charming presence and his flashing smile. Yudhishthira was very unhappy. Added to this separation was the incessant talk of Draupadi and Bhima trying to convince him that he was in the wrong, that it was foolish to spend their days in exile, that they could kill the Kauravas if only they were given a chance. The patience of Yudhishthira was sorely tried, but he spent his time in trying to comfort the weeping Draupadi and in trying to convince Bhima about the virtues of patience. It was indeed a trying time for Yudhishthira. He did not have Arjuna either with him. Arjuna would have supported him against the onslaught of Bhima's eloquence. Bhima was now trying to convince his brother that he ought not to have sent Arjuna to the Himalayas to pray to Shankara. He said, "This is another wrong thing you have done. Because of your foolishness, we had to come to the forest. You do not want us to be Kshatriyas. You want us to live the life of sannyasins. You like it and you are trying to make us like it. This life suits Brahmins all right, but not us. We are Kshatriyas and we are born to fight. Now, as if this is all not enough, you have sent, nay, banished Arjuna, our dear brother, to perform tapas. Tapas indeed. Never have I heard of a Kshatriya performing tapas until he renounces the world. Why should Arjuna acquire divine astras? It just shows that you have no confidence in his strength or mine. To kill a handful of sinners, no tapas is needed. We could have done it in an hour. But no, you would not allow it. You want to do things in this hatefully mild and patient way. 1 year is almost over now since Arjuna went away. We have become sick of this forest life. Please recall Arjuna from his penance. We will all march into that Hastinapura and kill the whole lot of them. You must do this for us." Poor Yudhishthira found it so hard to listen to this wild talk of his beloved brother. Of all his brothers, Yudhishthira loved Bhima most. His heart was given to Bhima mostly. He loved him too much to become offended by his cruel words. He was trying to talk gently to Bhima. There came to him just at that moment the great sage Brihadashva. Yudhishthira was grateful to him for coming to him just then. He gave way to his intense grief and self-reproach. He told the rishi all the events of the past 6 years. He was inconsolable. He said, "My lord, have you seen or have you heard about anyone more unfortunate than me?" The sage Brihadashva consoled Yudhishthira. He told that his dark days would soon be over. He told him the story of Nala, the king of Nishada, how he too had lost his kingdom in a game of dice. He told him about the many sufferings of Nala and how he got his kingdom back. "It was a game of dice again," said the sage, "which won him back his kingdom." It was an amazing thing to hear. Yudhishthira was surprised at this. Brihadashva told him how Nala was able to win his kingdom back by a game of dice. Nala had learned the art of playing the game. This art was called Akshahridaya. The rishi said, "I will teach you Akshahridaya. No one can defeat you in a game of dice." Yudhishthira was thrilled at the thought of acquiring the art. He learnt it. When their gloom had lifted, Brihadashva left them and went away. Narada came to Yudhishthira and told him that he should now go on a Tirtha Yatra. Yudhishthira consulted his guru Dhaumya. He was also favorable to the idea. He told them about the different Tirthas in the 4 quarters and said that they should set out as early as possible. While they were discussing about it, Lomasa came to Kamyaka. He came to Yudhishthira and told him about his visit to Indra's abode. He recounted to him his talk with Indra. He gave the message of Indra. "Yudhishthira, your brother Arjuna is now with me. With the permission, I will keep him with me. I need his help. After he has done his work for me, I will send him back to you. Lomasa also told Yudhishthira that he should go on a Tirtha Yatra. He said, I will accompany you to all the holy places. I am familiar with all of them. Yudhishthira was very happy to hear about Arjuna and his achievements. They spent 3 months, 3 more nights in Kamyaka. On the fourth day, they set out on a pilgrimage to all the holy places in Bharatavarsha. They first went to the sacred forest called Naimisa. The river Gomati flows there. They bathed in the holy water of the river. Their next halt was Prayaga, the holy spot where the golden yellow waters of the Ganga blend with the midnight blue of the Jamuna. Here the river Saraswati gets lost in the two rivers, Ganga and Yamuna. The place is called Triveni Sangama. It was a wonderful sight. They now visited the great Mahanandi. It was considered to be very sacred. They met the sage Agastya. There they spent the 4 months of the rainy season. Lomasa recounted to them the greatness of Agastya. The Pandavas spent a happy time there. From there, they proceeded to the banks of the rivers Nanda and Paramananda, and then to the mountain Hemakuta. Every spot on the journey had its own story, and Lomasa was a good narrator. Time passed pleasantly for all of them. They now turned their way westwards. They saw Godavari and the southern rivers Agastya Tirtha and the Indian Ocean. They saw the rivers along the west coast of Bharatavarsha. Finally, they came to Prabhasa. Balarama and Krishna received them with great excitement. The Pandavas spent several days together with the Vrishnis, talking about the many incidents that had taken place since they last met. Balarama and Krishna were happy to hear about Arjuna and his happy stay with Indra. It was very hard for Krishna to be without Arjuna. He missed him. All the Vrishnis sat around the Pandavas and talked about the unfortunate happenings of the past few years. Balarama spoke in impassioned terms. He said, Krishna, I do not like this at all. Here is Yudhishthira, the prince of the house of Kurus, and we see him with his hair matted and his form dressed in tree, bark and deer skin. Here is Draupadi, unrivaled in beauty, and her form too is now covered by this dreadful tree bark. Can you bear to see this? How is it that you are doing nothing about it? How could this happen with all the elders of the Kuru house being present? How could Bhishma and Drona allow this? It is an eternal stain on the family of Dhritarashtra. To banish these brothers to the forest is something terrible. To banish them to the forest for so many years and to enjoy their kingdom is something I did not expect Duryodhana to do. Krishna, I think it is but right that we should march on them and teach them a lesson. Looking at these twins, Sahadeva and Nakula, my blood boils with anger. Look at Bhima. Think of his power and look at his dress fit only for pilgrims and mendicants. It is a shame. I saw Yudhishthira surrounded by all the kings of the earth when I saw him last. He is now surrounded by sannyasins. I am very unhappy to see the plight of the Pandavas. How is it the earth does not split into two when so much of injustice is present on her face? Krishna, Satyaki, come. Let us go and fight with the Kauravas and restore their kingdom to the Pandavas. Satyaki said, My lord, the time is not ripe yet. Yudhishthira himself is very particular that the 13 years should pass before the war begins. We all know Duryodhana too well to imagine that he will return their kingdom to the Pandavas. There is to be a war. It is going to be a terrible war. We will all fight. Who can withstand the combination of the Vrishnis and the Pandavas? Let us wait till Yudhishthira gives us permission. Krishna said, Brother, Satyaki is right. Yudhishthira is advising patience not because he is not powerful enough to fight, but because he wants to keep his word. Truth to him is greater than all the wealth in this world. Let us respect his wishes. The time is not distant when we will all enjoy the war to our heart's content. Yudhishthira was very happy to see that there was some who understood his feelings and sentiments. He had been listening to Bhima and Draupadi since ever so long, ever since they came to the forest. He had been so hurt by them and so often that this sympathetic speech from Satyaki, supported by that of Krishna, brought tears to his eyes. He said, "My Lord Balarama's anger has already begun to destroy the Kauravas. It only needs the touch of Krishna and Satyaki to finish the conflagration. I have no fears about the future. I know that Bhima and Draupadi will be happy to see the Kauravas destroyed. I am happy and grateful to you all for the affection you have for us." After their visit to Prabhasa, the Pandavas continued their journey. They proceeded northwards and reached the banks of the river Saraswati. It was a place sacred to the king Sibhi because it was here that the incident of the hawk and the dove took place. They saw the river Ganga now. They reached the mountain Mainaka. This was one of the very sacred mountains. Their next stop was Kailasa. They saw Bindu Saras, the source of the river Ganga. They saw the 7 streams, 3 of which flowed towards the west, 3 towards the east, and 7th which followed Bhagiratha. The Pandavas now saw the mountain Mandhara. This Mandhara mountain was the dwelling place of Kubera. Yudhishthira invoked the spirit of the mountain and offered his prayers. He prayed to the rivers Ganga and Yamuna. The Pandavas found the place so restful and soothing. Even Bhima forgot his misery and was happy on the slopes of the mountain Mandara. ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುಭ್ಯೋ ನಮಃ. ಗುರುಪೂರ್ಣದಂದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಗುರುಗಳಿಗೆ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರವನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಕೃಷ್ಣಾರ್ಪಣಮಸ್ತು. Chapter 11 of Vanaparva, towards Himavan. The Pandavas decide to ascend the Mandara mountain. They found the task very difficult. Yudhishthira was concerned about the delicate Draupadi. Bhima said that he would carry her. He knew that she would like to meet Arjuna, who would come to the mountain when he returned from the abode of Indra. Bhima said, "I will carry her. I will carry all of you when you feel that you cannot walk anymore." It was early in the morning. The sun had just appeared, tinting the mountain top with the pink and gold. The scene was so wonderful. The air was exhilarating. They were not tired, not at the beginning of the ascent, but it was fatiguing as the sun climbed higher in the heavens. They went on undaunted and walked towards the peak called Gandha Madana, the peak where the air was made up of all perfumes. They were all excited at the thought of meeting Arjuna. It was now 5 years since he had left them and gone away. It was a pathetic sight. Yudhishthira, unused to rough life, was trying with great difficulty to climb the mountain. His heart was filled with just one thought, the thought of Arjuna and the meeting with him. He wanted to see Arjuna, who had gone to learn all the astras so that they could win the war. They talked of nothing else. They reached the ashrama called Bhadari, where the rishis Nara and Narayana were reputed to have performed their penance. Yudhishthira said, "I cannot go any further. My body is burning as if with fever. My breath comes in gasps. I feel faint." Even as he was saying this, a sudden darkness fell. The sky was overcast by dense black rain clouds. There was a furious gale blowing in all directions. It was a terribly impressive sight. The earth, the mountain, and the sky were all enveloped in a mantle of dust. They could not talk to each other. The noise of the gale was deafening. They could not see each other. The sky had become so overcast. The trees were felled by the gale. Trees which had trunks as thick as small mountains fell down, pushed out of the soil. It looked as though the sky were descending onto the mountain. The line where the mountain peaks ended and the rain clouds began was invisible. They had to make their way in the midst of the newly fallen trees and small hillocks, which were scattered all over the place. Bhima was strong enough to push the trees away from their path and to carry Draupadi too at the same time. But even he had to admit defeat at the hands of nature. The strength of the elements was too much to combat. Bhima sat down suddenly. So did the rest. The gale abated in its fury. The rain began to pour. They had never seen rain like that. The water drops were sharper than arrows. The storm was lashing the mountain with its fury. Awed at the sight of nature's fury and the helplessness of man against the rage of the elements, Yudhishthira sat stunned. He could not talk. He could only look. The rocks became dislodged. The water flowed like some millions of mountain torrents. It looked like the fury of a man who had held his anger in leash for a long time and then suddenly let himself go. Yudhishthira thought that if he were to give way to his anger, it would be somewhat like this. The rivers flowed round the trees and undermining them, they flowed on. The trees fell suddenly, one by one. It was a magnificent sight. Nothing could equal it in grandeur. At last the rain stopped. The sky became clear suddenly. The sun, till now hidden behind black clouds, appeared in all his glory. The world smiled at the sight of the God of light and life. It seemed to say that all was right once again. The sight cheered the weary pilgrims. They began their ascent once more. They had not gone far when weakness overcame the delicate Princess Draupadi. She fainted with the strain of the journey. Her knees gave way and she collapsed. Nakula ran to her. He raised her and placed her head on his lap. Yudhishthira and others rushed to her side. Yudhishthira took her head on his lap and tried to revive her. He was overcome with pity for her and anger against himself, for he was the cause of her unhappiness. He had water brought and sprinkled it on her face. They massaged her feet gently and slowly her color became natural. She was getting her consciousness back. Nakula and Sahadeva gently stroked her feet with their hands. Her feet had become sore and blistered by the rough walk. Yudhishthira blamed himself for this. He said, "Forgive this sinful husband of yours, Draupadi. When your father asked us who we were, I told him that we were the Pandavas and added, your daughter will be living a lake of lotuses only to enter another. I wince when I think of that. You were given to us by your father with the words, with these Pandavas as your husbands, you will achieve great happiness. Draupadi, look at the happiness we have been able to give you. You have known nothing but pain ever since you became the bride of the Pandavas. I am cursing myself as no one else can. You must forgive this erring husband of yours and look on all of us with love and pity." Draupadi comforted the king and said there was nothing to be done when fate had decided to make them suffer. Yudhishthira told Bhima, "Draupadi will not be able to walk a step more. Either you or the twins must carry her, or you must ask Ghatotkacha to come and help us out. He is strong and he is devoted to us. He will come if you want him here. I think that will be the best thing to do. You are also tired. You cannot carry Draupadi all the way." Bhima thought of his son. Quicker than the thought, Ghatotkacha appeared before them. Bhima embraced him with affection. Yudhishthira was delighted to see this magnificent nephew of his. From his birth, Ghatotkacha had been a favorite of Yudhishthira. Bhima said, "My son, look at your mother Draupadi. She cannot walk. You must carry her up the mountain. Walk slowly so that she may be comfortable." Draupadi was now carried by Ghatotkacha. He had brought his Myrmidons with him. They carried the rest of the party. Only Dhaumya and Lomasa walked by themselves. They were traveling very fast now. Soon they could see the top of the great Kailasa mountain. There they were set down by the Rakshasas. It was the land of eternal sunlight. The sun's rays were always hovering over the top of the mountain. The rishis who had their dwelling place there welcomed Yudhishthira and his brothers with Draupadi and Daumya and Lomasa. In that ashrama, known as Badari, they spent many happy days. They could see from there the source of the Ganga, Bindussaras. They could see the mountain Mainaka. They were very happy there. Yudhishthira felt peace stealing over his soul, peace which he had not found anywhere else. Jai Shri Badri Narayana. Krishnarpanamastu. Chapter 12 of Vanaparva. Bhima and Hanuman. Nature had been lavish in her gifts around Badarikashrama. The flowers that bloomed there were not to be found anywhere else. It was a wonderful spot. The scenery could not be described by mere words. No language was adequate to describe the ashrama and its surroundings. One day, Draupadi was sitting there looking at the beauty spread out in front of her. Suddenly there was blown towards her a flower. It was beautiful. It had a maddening perfume. She took it into her hands and looked at it for a long time. Bhima came there just then. Draupadi called him near and said, "Look, Bhima, look at this flower. Smell it. What a wonderful perfume. I like it so much. Bhima, can you get me some more of these flowers?" Bhima was only too happy to do something to please Draupadi. He set out immediately in quest of the flower. He followed the perfume. Like a hound following in the wake of its quarry, Bhima went on and on, pursuing the teasing smell. He did not know how far he had gone. His mind was busy with 1,000 thoughts. His feet were proceeding just mechanically. He had gone quite some distance. He realized it suddenly. He blew his conch and went further. The noise of his conch roused all the lions that were sleeping in their dens. Bhima went further on. In that forest dwelt the great Hanuman. He was sleeping. The noise of Bhima's conch woke him up from a deep sleep. He shook his tail and dashed it around the ground. The noise made resounded amongst the caves of the mountain. This was heard by Bhima. It sounded like a challenge to him. He hurried in the direction from where the noise came. He found a huge big monkey sitting on an immense slab of stone. Bhima was amazed at the sight. He had never seen a monkey like this before. This monkey was sitting there coolly, blocking his way. Bhima went near him. At the noise made by his approach, the monkey half opened his eyes. He said, "Young man, why do you make so much noise? Your conch woke me up from my sleep. All the human beings in these parts are kind to animals. You seem to be a stranger to this place. You are not considerate towards the inmates of this place. Where do you come from? Who are you? Beyond this spot, this forest is impregnable. In kindness, I am telling you this, kindness towards a fellow human being. I am sure you will listen to me. Here are some fruits. Eat them. Rest a while here and go back to where you come from. You cannot go any further than this. I tell you the truth." Bhima spoke in reply to the strange monkey, which could talk like a human being. He said, "May I know who you are? You are not an ordinary monkey. You must be some demigod who has assumed the form of a monkey. As for me, I am the son of Vayu. My mother is Kunti. My name is Bhimasena, Bhima for short. I am one of the Pandavas who are in exile." He told the story of the Pandavas and about Arjuna, whom they were to receive in a short while. The monkey smiled at the words of Bhima. He said, "I am in your way. I am not able to move. If you will take my advice, you will return the way you came." Bhima felt that his temper would rise soon. He was getting very impatient. He said, I do not want your advice. I want to go on. I am in a hurry. Move out of my way. If you do not, you will regret it. The monkey said, As I told you before, I am too old to move. If you insist on proceeding even against my advice, you can do so by leaping across my body. Bhima was getting disgusted with the whole thing. He frowned and said, You are elder to me. You are sitting in my way. It is not right to leap over your body. It is disrespectful to an elder. But if you insist, I will have to leap over you as the great Hanuman did when he had to cross the sea. The monkey said, Who is this Hanuman you talk about? You seem to have some respect for him. I can see it by the way you pronounce his name. Your voice is so gentle and soft when you mention this Hanuman. Tell me, who is this Hanuman? The monkey turned his eyes on Bhima. There was a droll look in them which irritated Bhima. He said, You are a monkey and you do not know who Hanuman is? He smiled despairingly at the monkey and said, Hanuman is the greatest of all monkeys. He is my brother. He is a great scholar. He is famed for his great deeds in the service of Sri Ram. When Ram lost Sita, his wife, this brother of mine, leaped across the sea and carried Rama's message of comfort to Sita. I am just nothing in front of him, his prowess and his strength. But I am strong enough to fight you if I have to. I have to go to the heart of this forest. Please make way for me. If you do not, I am afraid I will have to display my power and hurt you. I will have to kill you, though I do not want to. Hanuman smiled to himself when he saw the impatience of Bhima. He said, Please do not be angry with me. I tell you, I am too old to move. Please take pity on my age. My tail is in your way. If you push it to aside, the path will be clear. If you can go then. Bhima smiled condescendingly, and with his left hand he tried to brush the tail aside. He could not do it. The tail refused to move. Surprised at this, he used both his hands to push it aside. He could not. He frowned at this unexpected failure. He tried again and again, but the tail remained where it was. The monkey was sitting still, watching him with a faint smile of amusement in his eyes. Bhima had to admit defeat. He hung down his head in shame. Bhima went to the presence of the monkey. He prostrated before it and said, Please forgive me for my harsh words. In my arrogance, I overreached the bounds of good behavior. You are old. I am younger than you. You must overlook the faults of one who is like your child. I am sorry for my rude words. Please forgive me. Bhima's eyes were wet. He continued, You must tell me who you are. You are a king among monkeys. I want to know you. The monkey smiled at him and said, I am also anxious to tell you who I am. I am the son of Vayu. My name is Hanuman. The moment these words left his lips, they were clasped in each other's arms. Tears ran down the faces of both. Again and again Bhima said, My brother, and fresh tears would spring to his eyes. They spent a long time thus talking to each other. Bhima was thrilled beyond words at the thought that he had met his brother. It was a rare piece of good fortune that had come his way. Hanuman said, I want to grant you a boon as a mark of appreciation of your strength and memory of these wonderful moments. Bhima could not ask him anything. He said, When I know that you are with us, there is no doubt about the Kauravas being killed. Hanuman said, I will sit on the flagstaff of Arjuna's chariot when the war begins. With my shouts of encouragement, I will put new life into your army and frighten the enemies. I will always be with you. But now you can proceed on your way. The path is difficult and dangerous. You must be careful. The brothers embraced each other once again and parted. With his mind full of this meeting with his brother, Bhima proceeded northwards, still following the trail of the perfume. It was stronger now. He followed the smell with excitement. Suddenly he came upon a river. The surface of the river was covered with thousands of the flowers which Draupadi had wanted. The air was laden with the maddening perfume of the flowers. It was the garden of Kubera. Rakshasas were guarding it. Bhima walked into the garden. The Rakshasas saw the intruder. They approached him and said, "Who are you that dares to enter this garden? This belongs to Kubera and no one is allowed to enter the garden." Bhima was impatient. He said, "I am Bhima, the Pandava. My wife Draupadi found one of these beautiful flowers and she wanted me some more of them. So I have come to pluck them for her." The Rakshasas would not let him do so. They said, "These flowers belong to the king. No one is allowed to touch them. If you want them, you can go to our king and ask him for permission." Bhima said, "No. Why should I ask permission of your king? Why should I beg? I am a Kshatriya. I cannot ask favors of others. These flowers are on the face of the river. The river does not belong to anyone, and neither do the flowers that grow on the surface of the river. Of course, I will pluck the Soughandhika flowers for my Draupadi. No one can stop me." He walked towards the banks of the river. The Rakshasas attacked him. Bhima was furious. He killed most of them with his hands and his mace. He plucked as many flowers as he could, and no one could stop him. Kubera was told about the human being who was entering the river like a wild elephant. Kubera laughed and said, "That must be Bhima. Let him pluck the Soughandhika flowers. Do not fight with him. He is a friend." They came back to the river bank and gave Bhima the message of the king. He was pleased with the affection of Kubera. In the meantime, Yudhishthira and Draupadi were getting worried about the prolonged absence of Bhima. They set out with Ghatotkacha and went in the direction which Bhima had taken. Ghatotkacha travelled fast and soon they reached the garden of Kubera. There they saw the many Rakshasas who had been killed by Bhima. They saw him too, sitting on the river bank, his arms full of flowers. Yudhishthira hurried to him and embraced him with affection. Kubera came there and received them with great honor. He requested them to spend some days with him. They did. Yudhishthira now wanted to go further north. He was discussing it with Bhima. A voice from the heavens spoke, "You are not to go further than this. You must return to Badari. You will find Arjuna on the earth very soon." According to the command of the voice from above, they retraced their steps to Badari. They lived there happily, but very impatiently. They were counting the days that had to pass before they could meet Arjuna. Jai Shri Hanuman. Shri Krishnarpanamastu.